All right, the Hangout is live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking About Survivor. I am Christiana Ellis.
I'm Mike Martine.
Tonight, we're talking about Survivor Season 35, Episode 12, On Schedule.
Yay.
This was a crazy episode. There was some bananas stuff happening there at the end.
Yes.
You seem really enthusiastic.
No, I'm kind of reading my notes real fast.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
I probably seem distracted. So.
Well, so there was just a very chaotic tribal council leading to a unanimous vote that does not count. And it's Ben's game pretty much got completely blown up, except for that one little detail that he had held back from everybody, which was that he had another idol.
Yeah. Which was amazing, that
yeah.
Everybody was running around like yelling at him about like spilling the secrets when yet it was because he had all of their secrets.
Yeah. Yeah.
They didn't have his. Yeah.
And I have to say, although it gave him sort of a triumphant moment here in this episode, it's not the end of the season yet. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like he might have, I don't know what else he has at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it just comes down to like, as there become less people, each vote becomes more critical, and he potentially, he can become the person who they need to get rid of somebody else.
Yeah.
And he may have established himself as someone that people think because he did this, like there's no way he can win now, because everybody was against him. Like, Lauren went home. She hates him, like she won't vote for him. She'll be arguing like to not. So he potentially set himself up that way, except that it also could come true in that he could go to the end and not win.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think it was lost a little bit in the fact that he did it because he heard them talking about voting him off.
Yeah, that's true.
They were upset that he knew about their plan and tried to do something about it, or potential plan, because it seemed like it never really took shape one way or the other. Like, we don't know what they would have settled on.
Right. They definitely were talking about it as a maybe thing, not a definitely right now thing.
Right. But a significant maybe thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Not a, this is just some idle, like, we should make sure we've explored all avenues. Like, this is we really should talk about this, and this should be something we consider. And, judging by the way that, like, it went at the end and they all turned to vote for him, it's likely that they could have gotten that vote stream prior to, had he not stirred everything up.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I thought it was a little sanctimonious of some of them when they were like, getting after him about that stuff. And it's like, he only did it because you were talking about getting rid of him. He had to have an alternative plan than, please stay with me, cross my fingers,
Right. Of course.
And he had an idol, so he had a little bit of swagger to it,
Yeah. Well, I think, though, that, like, all that's true. And so I'm not sure, like, what else, but, like, this is a perfect example of, it's not obvious what else he could have done from this point forward. However, he laid the groundwork for this situation in previous episodes, right? Like, it's very exciting to be the double agent, but the risk in being a double agent is that one side views you as a traitor and the other side views you as the person that we're using to betray the other side. So you're still kind of a traitor for both sides. Like, you're the useful traitor or the devastating traitor.
It's true.
so it definitely becomes a situation where him having that sets him apart from the other three definitely puts the focus on him, right? Like they're the ones that have something in common and he's the one that's different. And it worked out, but then he also kind of got a little cocky about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about jump back to the beginning of the episode where we have Ryan and Chrissy and Mike talking about having been blindsided. It seems like everything comes out right away. Like they there's no more secrets about what happened. It seems like everyone's upfront that Ben had tricked them.
Right.
Ryan is fairly impressed. He's a little bit like shell shocked, kind of just grinning, like, "Wow, that was." I'm kind of impressed with how well they fooled me. But knows that means like he's in a bad spot now, especially with Chrissy, especially since Chrissy is kind of in a rampage mood and not looking to repair relationships. She wants to burn it all down, at least at this first bit, and like she's trying to shame Ben, and I think. I wonder what your take on it is. I don't know that you're going to think it's that different than mine, but just I think part of what happened is that the attempt to shame him stung a little bit more than Ben would have wanted it to, and so to compensate, he doubled down on the "it's just a game, it's just a game," which just further riled Chrissy up. And that's what leads with Chrissy feeling even in the morning like he was not even being a friend that beat me in a game. He was being like an enemy that never, like our relationship never meant anything to begin with.
Right. And
I think that's key. That's a danger when you make a move like that, because on the one hand, you can justify lying to someone or deceiving someone in the context of a game because you're saying we're playing a game where that's part of it. But when the fallout comes, you have to be able to manage those feelings, and that's part of the game too.
Yes.
Did you have?
I agree on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Like Chrissy didn't manage her feelings particularly well either.
No, definitely not.
However, to your point, like she was also the wronged party. So if we give her the benefit of the doubt that she,
I lost the second half of your sentence there. If we give her the benefit of the doubt that
she was the wronged party and therefore like a bit of a right to be more upset than maybe we would deem like okay, just because again, she was the one that was wronged and hurt. But then his response, like you said, it exacerbated the problem instead of fixing it. He didn't say, look, like what he said later after thinking about it was the right thing to say, which was, I do want to work with you. I want to play this game with you. This, for what I feel like what needed to be done, this is why I chose to do this. It wasn't anything against you. It was about getting those other people out. You just happened to be on the wrong side of that choice. And that's the part of the game that I needed to play.
Right.
And yeah, it's hard in that situation. Eventually he came around to that.
Well, he also came around to that after he realized he was in danger and he wanted her vote to help him.
Also true. Yeah.
Yeah. Because he didn't seem interested in working with her until then. And I think that was honestly part of the bit, is that he had decided that his plan was to go with Devin and Lauren and Ashley. And he was hardening himself to be prepared to vote Chrissy out.
Yeah.
I think that's what he was doing earlier on.
Well, yeah, wasn't Chrissy pretend like highly potential target last time?
Yeah,
When
well, and she was going to be this time too, right?
yeah, she would have been this time. Yeah, other than until they started thinking about him and
Yeah.
vocalizing without being careful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. So I think that it's definitely true that Chrissy reacted in a way that we've talked about before, which is that as much as it is a completely understandable human emotion to be angry when someone has deceived you in a game with high stakes like this, it's also true that venting those emotions in an open way like that is not good gameplay. So like it's understandable on an emotional level, of course, but it's also not necessarily what's going to get you closer to the outcome you actually want.
Right. And one of the things you just stated there, I feel like in my mind summed up a lot of what happened with this episode is that there was a lot of bad gameplay for people who had played so well up to this point. It was just this weird unraveling of it between, I mean, what Ben did, what Chrissy did, what Lauren for sure did, and even Dr. Mike a little bit. Like the weird, once he decided to just tell everybody everything, that I didn't get.
Mike has no strategy except to tell everybody every secret anybody tells him, apparently.
Yeah, he was holding on to that for a little bit, and then just I forget exactly what prompted it. But when he just decided, well, I'm just going to go tell Lauren then that Ben's telling me this, because at the beginning he started he was planning on actually working with Ben.
Yeah,
because
he gets to a point where he's concerned that Chrissy is playing emotionally and therefore is unpredictable, so he needs a plan B, is what he said.
Right, but that's not a plan B, because plan A doesn't exist anymore once you do what you did.
Exactly. Your plan B blows up plan A. So yeah. Exactly. So because oh, well, I mean, we'll get there, but it was his first step in creating plan B was essentially to completely eliminate any possibility that plan A could work.
Correct.
Yeah. So, yeah. So he's kind of all over the place. I mean, I like him. I think he's entertaining to watch. And some of his shenanigans at tribal council, especially, I mean, we'll get there, but
yeah.
I mean, he's fun to watch, but his strategy is just, he's flailing randomly. And it's exciting to watch, but there doesn't seem to be any motive there.
Even what he did at tribal council, there wasn't a ton of strategy behind that.
No, that was TV move. That's what that was. Yeah. He even said he's been waiting for so long to do this on TV or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, we didn't have any of that really. All we had really was just setting up that Chrissy's got a grudge against Ben now, and that's what brought us to the reward challenge. And I have two things to say about the reward challenge. One is that I loved how much time they spent with each pair. And then two, what the hell was with that bullshit random challenge?
That was dumb.
That was so dumb. There has to be some reason behind that. In fact, actually, I meant to look up to see if Probst answered it in a Dalton Ross interview or something like that. I'm going to even look it up just because there has to be, there's no way that he gets away with, what the hell? The only thing that made any sense to me was that perhaps they had a more elaborate challenge planned and couldn't do it for some reason. And this was the last minute backup thing.
But yeah, they would have had to also completely disassemble whatever that challenge was or whatever.
Well, they could take it to a different stretch at beach or something. I mean,
that's true.
Okay, so I actually found Dalton Ross, because he knows his stuff, asked him this exact question. Basically, he's like, "Why did you do that?" Essentially, yeah, asks it in more words, but Probst's answer was, this originated from a simple problem of too much story and not enough time in the episode. You only have 43 minutes in a 1 hour episode. You have to carefully allocate where the time goes. We wanted to involve the loved ones, but didn't want it to take as long as a full-on challenge. So, and then everything else is just, nonsense of like, yeah, we thought it went really well and everyone liked it. I'm like, no. I mean, like, maybe that's a reason that you could have had an abbreviated challenge, but one that is 100% dumb luck, BS. No, don't like it. Never do that again.
Yeah, it was terrible. And
yeah.
I much preferred the false edit of last week to speed up the challenge.
Yeah.
to this nonsense.
Right. I mean, like, and think about one of the coolest things about when you bring the loved ones on, and especially when they get to participate in the challenge, is that added element of someone who didn't get to fully play, but they get a little taste. And instead, we're going to give them a little taste of nothing. Like, drawing marble is like the worst thing in Survivor.
Yeah, it was pretty stupid, especially since it was a really good loved one episode other than that.
Yeah, like, I loved how much time they spent with each pairing.
Well, probably because they had a terrible challenge to show us, so they had to get the entertainment part. But yeah, they spent a ton of time with each pairing. They were just good reunions. They were nice. I mean, they're good pairings. Not that it's ever bad, but it was really fun. It was very emotional. Like, these tend to always be, but this one in particular,
yeah.
There were a lot of teary eyes, even in the audience. And then they go to, and you're going to draw marbles, and it's like, that's so anticlimactic to like the emotional state that everybody was in.
Right. And and even that answer, that interview answer, that's PR. That's there. I don't even believe any of that's true. Maybe the idea that they had less time that they wanted to spend on the challenge, but that they decide that stuff in the edit. You know what I mean? It's like they could have. There's plenty of short challenges where all they have to like the endurance ones. All they have to show is like the split seconds where people go out, and you can have a challenge that takes 3 hours, but we only see 2 minutes of it in the game because, well, and not only that, but like if by sheer dumb luck in that second pick, they had both mismatched, then what? We just do a whole nother round?
Yeah.
That was a stupid challenge. I feel like.
Well, and I feel like the answer.
You kind of froze up a little bit again.
Looks like we froze here. I was gonna say, I feel like that answer treats us like we're stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't understand that it doesn't matter how long the challenge takes. Like, you can just edit it to whatever needs to fit the show.
Yeah.
Would you know what all else needed to fit into this show until after you had already filmed everything?
Mm-hmm.
So to say, oh, well, there was so much good stuff that came later, but you wouldn't know that before the.
Yeah, I think the only thing that makes any sense to me is like something went wrong with whatever they were originally going to do, or someone made a bad decision at some point, and Probst is just not there to throw anyone under the bus, and so gives a sort of generic PR answer that. Like, so I get it why he would answer like that, but that's a BS challenge, and I have a hard time imagining anyone involved with the production going with that as plan A, ever. It's just so contrary to most of the way it works. Yeah.
And their plan B required them to tear down all of plan A, and then they were left with nothing but this.
Yeah. It was so bad. And it just, it really cheapened that whole element. Now, I mean, that said, like I love the loved one stuff, and I liked spending time with everyone. We had Probst weirdly deciding to throw shade at Mike at that last minute is like, we all want to know who married you.
Yes.
And I mean, it's playful, but dude, really? Like, is that necessary?
Yeah. Well, and the best part was his wife was like, didn't really even engage in that. Like, they tried to even like barb it a little bit, like, oh, you must be so patient. She's like, no, he's great.
Yeah. I loved the exchange where he was basically saying this, like, I'm so grateful that she let me do this. It's the most selfish thing I've ever done. And then she says, it's the only selfish thing he's ever done. And I was like, oh, that's beautiful.
He was like so sweet to him, you know, and they're all like trying to make these like jokes of like how you have to tolerate him. And she's like, he's the most selfless person I've ever met. And I love him. Like, what, I don't get the joke.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
When in reality, she probably does, but she's probably dealt with that her whole life. And is so, I love that she's conditioned instead of to like engage in it, she just deflects it. Like that's nonsense. Like, don't, you know, don't make me seem like I'm some sort of hero for like marrying this guy. Like, you know, he's a pretty good guy.
Yeah.
He's a little weird, but that's not my place to acknowledge, you know?
Yeah. So it's like, well, you know, you and I are both very frequently big Probst boosters, you know, we like him. That joke was on the mean-spirited side. It's like, yes, we know it's a joke. Yes, we know he's a little wacky and it's fun to play with that. But that was maybe not the right time for it.
Yeah, it was beneath the moment, you know, for sure.
Yeah. I don't think any of the others stood out to me quite as much as that, but Ryan in tears telling his dad, I told you I'd get you here. Finding out that it was Lauren's sister that actually wanted to be on the show the most. And
I thought that was good.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some good stuff in there.
And this joke I did find, I thought this was a great observation from Probst when Lauren's sister like grabs her stomach and goes, "You lost a few rolls," and he's like, "Only a sister." You know, like that is just not a.
Yeah. So I was definitely, you know, at the end of meeting everybody, I was thinking, yeah, I'm really positive on this. Lots of time spent with everybody. This is great. And I just couldn't believe that challenge. It was blah, 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 bad.
And then even past that, there was, I mean, other than the fact that like the awkward like part where they were like discussing strategy and they made their loved ones like sit there awkwardly quiet, they didn't really address like there wasn't really much back at camp either.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't get like this whole like we didn't really see the barbecue. Like, I mean, it existed and all that, but there wasn't this. They really cut all that out too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot in this episode, obviously.
Right. Which
again,
we back to our other point.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's stuff you decide after you don't have enough time, and you say, okay, if we have only a certain amount of time with loved ones, it's more interesting to do the, you know, spend a lot of time on the intro. That's where everybody gets emotional. That's the most fun.
Mm-hmm.
We'll cut out the barbecue. We're going to cut down the challenge. But again, to treat us like they could have decided that without knowing how many things were going to happen in the episode when they created the challenge is just, it treats us like we're stupid and it's frustrating, you know?
Yeah.
Unless, put this out there, big conspiracy theory. They did an entire challenge, very big and complicated, took a ton of time. Got to the end of the episode, and they're like, we have no way to cut this down. Bring the loved ones back and let's do this, and let's have them fake this marble.
That's starting to get into some tinfoil hat territory, I think. But that said, I think something went wrong, or just someone made a poor choice somewhere along the line.
But anyway,
I mean, yeah. So we'll never know. I think probably at this point, just because we've been given a PR answer. There's no reason to really push Except that I just hope they know that they should never do that again.
Yes.
But so in any event, Chrissy is the one that ends up getting to sort of be the first choice. And then she picks Ryan, Mike, and Ashley to accompany her. Basically, primarily picking the two people that she thinks she has a loose alliance with due to being on the outs. And then Ashley, who she thinks is maybe the easiest to swing, which, I don't know. I mean, I guess she doesn't get along very well with Lauren based on the last time, you know, and Ben she's mad at. I don't know. Maybe Ashley's the choice of those, but we just know that Ashley's like the only reason Ashley even considers anything is because she's thinking, well, you know, Ben is a threat. But even if that's what we decide to do, we're not going to work with Chrissy and Ryan and Mike to do it. You know, it's like,
right.
So in any event, you're right that we didn't really spend a lot of time with the actual reward or spending time with the loved ones. Ben decides that, you know, especially given that he knows what the real idol looks like, he can make a fake one. And he intends to plant it to cover looking for the real trophy. And so, like, this is another example, too, though, of like, we talked about how he only sort of started blowing things up once he realized they were already discussing him. And it had been on people's minds. But it's also true that we have at this point, for example, Lauren being kind of unimpressed and irritated with him, essentially trying to do, like, for whatever strategy value he claims this fake idol to have, that it essentially seems like trying to set up Chrissy to be embarrassed.
Which may have been what he was doing, but it is not how he articulated what he was doing.
Yeah.
He said that the idea behind it was that if they found it, they would stop looking, and therefore he could keep looking.
Yeah.
For the new one that was back in play. So, part of me feels like Lauren was starting to look for reasons to turn on him because she's fairly astute, even if she did make some poor choices, in this episode. We've seen her play very well, which is, again, what I was saying. And when we talked about that, it said, that there was so much good play from most of these people up until this point that it was somewhat bizarre how poorly they made decisions. And what this felt like to me was that she was predetermined to look for faults in Ben. Not that she wanted to vote him out this time. I'm not saying that. I don't think it was like a...
Yeah. Did I freeze up for you again? Because you kind of finished your sentence and then stopped.
But I didn't freeze. Okay.
No. So the only thing that I might add to that, because I think that you're probably onto something, at least to an extent, but it's also possible that the way Ben expressed it to the camera when he was making it and the way he explained it to Lauren might be different.
Well, because there was a point, and I'm not sure exactly, like, without rewatching it, when he ran off, I think he did say, and man, I hope Chrissy finds it.
Yeah, something like that.
And so in his mind, it was probably an aside, but also part of, to your point, I think she's not wrong in that part of him probably wanted, because of the tension that he and Chrissy had, when he created this plan because he wanted to create this plan. But once he had it, he kind of subconsciously was like, and I hope Chrissy's the one that, that gets duped by me.
Yeah.
Not necessarily embarrassed at tribal council or embarrassed. I don't think it was to that extent, but it was I hope that I get one over on her because we're at odds.
Yeah.
even though the true intent wasn't embarrassment in his mind, it was prevention of looking for an idol. Like I feel like
Yeah.
his reasoning was just, but her interpretation of his subconscious, like,
Hmm.
hey, I want Chrissy to have this, was right, but she was also prone to look for faults in Ben, or because she wants to build a case in her own mind of why he needs to go at some
Well,
point.
at the same time, though, I'm not sure she was really in that headspace before, because wasn't she the one that, like, she plotted with Ben with her advantage and everything? It seemed like for her, Ben was actually her closest ally up to a point somewhere.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying is I think that because she's astute, she was realizing the same things that were also being brought up,
Hmm.
which is that Ben is a pretty strong threat. Before this, a pretty strong threat to win the game, and for
Hmm.
all the various reasons that they talked about, and is looking for a reason why she should bail on him as an ally. And
Yeah.
so is more sensitive to pick up something that would put him in a negative position. That's how I took it, because it did seem counter to how she was normally behaving towards him, and also it seemed like an extreme reaction to what we saw. You know,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also possible that that it was a capping off of, like, the the tension between them may have been something noticed by everyone else in the camp, and it may be that she was kind of not liking the way he was acting towards her.
the
I mean,
tension between him and Chrissy, you're talking
yeah,
about.
yeah,
Okay.
and Lauren may not have liked the way Ben was acting towards her.
That's also true, and that would also make her prime to. Again, I don't want to call it overreaction, but to be more sensitive to him
Hmm.
saying, wishing that Chrissy is the one to find it,
Hmm.
and making it seem like it was a bigger thing than that.
Yeah, yeah. Um. So I
Meanwhile,
was.
while they're going out to do it,
Yeah,
Lauren discovers the idol. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Or half of the idol.
half the idol, yes.
Um, which became such a thing later. Um, so I love that. I love the idea, first of all, of finding a clue that's one half and the other half will be at a challenge. They've done similar things before, and I like that. But I also like the idea that the piece is something that would look innocuous unless you knew what it would be.
Yes. What?
Uh, yeah.
But that also made it fairly easy. You
Yeah.
know, well, I guess, you could, if people are really like paying attention and like you just randomly just grabbed a seashell, that would look weird.
Mhm.
You
Well,
know, I
yeah.
I thought it would have been better if it was in a little bit more common of a space,
Yeah. To make it a
or
little bit,
or if it required you to work with somebody else, like to say, you know, this will be in one of your peers' places. Well, although then you'd have to work with everybody else. I don't know how else to pull. I wasn't unhappy with it. It just
they've when they've hidden stuff in challenges before, it was better. It was in places where, in theory, anyone might see it there and wonder about it.
right.
Or like in places where it's like, if you know where to look, it's obvious. If you don't, it's not obvious. But it's also not just a seashell in the sand.
Right.
But yeah, so I liked kind of the subtlety of it, but you're right that it became kind of trivial to actually find it. Except for, I guess, the piece of, probably, if you were really trying to be the last one up, that would make it harder and harder, right? Like, if you go out, then it's easy to grab. But like, if you were the last one and maybe going to win or something like that, then there's more attention on you.
Yeah. I mean, I think you could definitely still do it. You know,
Mm.
but you're right. It would require a little bit more of a show. You'd have to basically fall to the ground. Oh, I'm so exhausted after having won.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, did it.
Or like if you're the second place, you go down and you pound on the ground like Charlton Heston at Planet of the Apes. Damn it, all to hell. Oh, this seashell will help me feel better. Yeah, seashell. But I also loved the challenge because it being relatively simple endurance challenge pose, but with that extra little detail of the wind chimes on the discs was just an amazing touch. Because it added that audio element, it added a little bit of a visual to it. Oh, it was just a great little addition, I think, to an otherwise ordinary challenge.
Right, and it made it a little distracting, you know. It and the fact that it, well, again, I guess they've done this plenty of times, but the design specifically to their like width,
yeah,
you know, which I guess they always do that, but
yeah. For that matter, I want to give Lauren credit for when she decided to go out, because it was obvious when she did, if you're watching her carefully. She caught both discs.
Yeah.
She let go of them and caught them. And I'm like, what? They're so far apart, you can only press them with your fingertips, and she caught them? That's impressive. I mean, well, not possible, obviously, but she did it.
Yeah, I don't remember, but yeah.
She had both, her hands out pressing on them, released, but then snapped her arms down and just caught them both by the top of the disc.
Right, and I didn't I think this was another time where I was a little disappointed in Probst, because I think he made it sound like, I don't know, he made it sound really dismissive, like, oh, like Lauren just doesn't care anymore. She didn't even let the discs drop. And it's like, no, she definitely let the discs drop. She just caught them on the way down. It's not like she just grabbed
that was my impression from what he said. I thought he was just saying that it was kind of obvious that she wasn't like trying to the last second, but then it just slips away from her. It was like she made a decision to let them fall, and then she caught them. But it was not she went out despite her best intent. It was she made a decision and took herself out, which I think is true.
That's accurate. That's not how I felt when I heard it, because I think I was also equally impressed with her catching them, and for whatever reason, like, that didn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
I would. I think I was, maybe it was maybe a manner of expectation, is that I wanted Probst to be like,
wow,
discs, as opposed to, wow, Lauren isn't even trying anymore. She just let go, and. So again, maybe I was primed to be a little more sensitive to this. So
yeah, I didn't read it as negative, really.
She was a competitive softball player.
Yeah. Well, she's clearly in great shape. I mean, it's one of those things how occasionally it gets brought up that bodybuilder is not necessarily the body type. Or like Mr. Universe high definition and everything is not exactly what people look like when they're doing the actual strength challenge, right? Right. It's just the body type is different. Just because she's not, lean and lithe, doesn't mean she's not strong and in good shape, because clearly she is. So, and
the hand-eye coordination from that's built up potentially from playing a ball. Game like softball.
Yeah.
It was clear. But yes, we both recognize that moment as fairly impressive.
Yeah, I actually wrote "wow" in my notes. Like that's neat. Also, just watching her carefully, because we know that she's gonna get the seashell, and then of course it was easy. But in any event, everyone goes out until it comes down to Devin and Ashley as the final two. Devin does an entertaining little hula dance. And then, of course, they have their whole little conversation of they're such good allies that they can, negotiate throwing the challenge in exchange for a shoulder massage.
Yes. Again, two people who played well up to this point, not the greatest play.
Yeah. I didn't mind that one so much.
In the short term.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to hurt him.
Yeah.
Long term, this just drove there's now everybody's got in their mind, hey, that's now become they're not a power couple, but they are a power
Like
vote block.
they're the two that are closer than any other two.
Yes,
Yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
that's what you're thinking is there anybody that I would be up there with that we would have that same conversation?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when your answer is no, then yes, they are the tightest two. That becomes dangerous. It just seemed unnecessary,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah. And
it
so
seemed like more of Devin wanting the affirmation of that they were really that close. And I
yeah.
don't even think
Well,
mean in any
yeah.
more way than just allied.
Well, I think there might have also just been an element of, as he said, like, this really sucks. Like, it's not fun. I don't know. Like, I don't want to keep doing this. So if I
Yeah.
don't feel like I'm unsafe, I would rather stop.
Right, but he needs more than just Ashley to not feel unsafe.
Well, no, I agree. I'm just saying that that's the motivation was not so much necessarily the show of trust as much as any excuse to not be doing this challenge anymore because it hurts.
Yeah. Where I feel like he would have been better served to just, look over, recognize it was Ashley,
Mm-hmm.
and just say, I don't want to do this anymore, and just drop him and just leave it at that. What's there? There was nothing to be gained
Mm-hmm.
from that. So
Yeah, I didn't mind it so much. Although certainly it's true that I respect more the players who fight it out even in those circumstances because they're competitive and they have drive and they want to see who will actually win. I respect that more.
I don't disrespect it. I think it's a poor move to showcase that you are strongerly allied with that person than anybody else.
Strongerly.
Strongerly, more strongly.
Yeah. But yeah, so in any event, in her confessional at the end of this challenge, Lauren concludes still under the impression that it will be Mike, Chrissy, or Ryan going home. So even though we talked a little bit about her irritation with Ben and maybe some feelings there, she did seem at this point to still think that was the plan, at least for now.
And that's what I was saying with Lauren is I didn't feel like she was trying to establish him as someone to vote off this episode. I felt like it was a start of a narrative in her own mind to take someone who was an ally of hers and put him into a position where she felt comfortable eventually getting rid of him. That's how I felt about it. Not that it was like, I'm targeting him right now. So you're correct. She still wanted to go with the plan.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt at the same time, she'd also kind of put Ben in this separate little box of hey, he's a threat. He's a challenge threat. He's a win threat. I kind of got to separate myself emotionally from that.
Well, we didn't ever see her explain that thought process other than the part where she says she was annoyed by that.
Totally an influence
yeah.
of mine from that.
Yeah.
Not a no, she never said that. You're right.
Well, yeah, so we don't really know what else might have been going on there. But in any event, it's Ashley who initiates in this case. She's happy to be immune this time, but she's thinking about Endgame and saying, I'm going to need to have some moves that I can take credit for. This one ultimately kind of blew up in her face. But at the same time, that's what she's thinking. So she tells Lauren and Devin, it's like, hey, let's take out Ben. Devin, at least at first, is saying, well, isn't Chrissy a threat also? So shouldn't we go ahead and get rid of her first? But they're kind of having that conversation when Ben, there's a great shot of them kind of talking at the water, and then pulls out, and Ben's just right there. That was pretty fun. But it's like, oh, that's not ideal. you know, for him to just kind of, hey, what are you guys talking about? And everyone's just like, oh shit, what did he hear? What did he hear? So they all go quiet. And then he's like, I just walked up and you guys all went quiet. What's going on there?
Yeah.
I heard you say my name when I wasn't there. What's going on?
Devin's face in that at that moment was amazing. Like it was almost GIF worthy. GIF worthy.
I say GIF.
Yeah, GIF worthy. I mean, he was just kind of like, you know, like staring at the ground, like trying not to look at Ben, trying not to look at them, and like, I don't know what to say. We just got busted.
Yeah. So,
I mean, it was written on his face more than anybody else's, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Ben is sharp enough to be suspicious about that. And so he goes to Mike, basically feeling a little paranoid. And I think maybe there's an element where subconsciously, first of all, there's not that many choices if he's not going to go with those three, right? So Mike, Chrissy, and Ryan are the other three that he could work with. But he goes to Mike, who's going to kind of feed the paranoia element, pitches blindsiding Lauren because she has an idol and an extra vote. So honestly, that is a legit strategic call, right? Yeah. Like that's a real thing, especially because he was very happy with her having an idol and an extra vote when he was sure she was on his side. Now that she's no longer sure, those are potential weapons to be used against him, and makes her a huge threat.
Yep.
And so,
he's accurate, you know. I mean,
yeah. So honestly, I will definitely give Ben credit that, given that he feels his original alliance is in danger, and he's not wrong, I think that he chooses probably the best option available in terms of you know, what he can do differently. And I think that execution and plan is where things can kind of fall apart, because even though he did survive this time, he did have to use his idol, and it got to a point where the votes against him were unanimous, and it's only because he played his idol, you know, so that's not good for next time. But but that said, the plan of saying let's target Lauren for those reasons is not a bad one. But the problem, of course, just being, well, that means we have to rope in Ryan, which is probably fine because he's up for whatever as long as it's not him. But then now we have to bring Chrissy back in and try to tell Chrissy that, hey, remember those other times that I said I was with you and then lied and then voted against you after all? I won't do that this time.
Which you can see the hesitation, but
yeah,
then also the pragmatism of thinking, well, really happens.
You kind of froze up on me again.
I was gonna say, you know, so you have the, you know, that is accurate, but then you have the pragmatism of, well, if Lauren really does have those advantages, maybe that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the truth is too that if that force stayed solid, what other choice do they have? Right. So exploiting any possible splintering of that group is what you need to do. And you might wish it was someone other than Ben, but if Ben's the one who's coming to you with a plan, what is your other option, really? Unless it's to just sell Ben out to the others, which is ultimately kind of what happens, and it doesn't work because he has an idol. So that's kind of part of what got everything kind of chaotic here. And it's what's kind of funny about the whole thing is just how so much of everybody's plans just got blown up by secrets being shared willy-nilly, and Ben kind of coming out at the end just kind of saying, this is why you don't tell people when you find the idol.
Right.
That's been a problem on this season. Yeah.
When you keep a secret, you get to use your secret to your advantage, not to other people's.
Yeah. So in any event, let's see. He's having trouble getting on Chrissy's good side, but it's hard to argue with his plan, and they don't really have a better one. So they're considering it at least. This is where Mike decides, oh, I think that we might have a plan here, but Chrissy's playing emotionally. She might not go with this good plan just because she doesn't like Ben, is I think what he's thinking. And so that's where he says he needs a plan B. So his plan B is to tell Devin and Ashley everything that
Scorch the earth.
Yeah, exactly.
The crops aren't growing. Plan B. Scorch the entire earth.
Yeah. So this is where I think everyone is panicking a little bit, and where Lauren does two inexplicable things. One that we see right away and one that we learn about later. One is she gives half of the idol to Mike, which I wrote what in capital letters at the time before he did it, before the bit later.
Like the actual word what or WTF?
Yeah, just what. Just like what in capital letters. And
I wrote WT and F in capital letters, but
yeah. And the thing is too, she could have just given him a fucking seashell. How would he know? That's all it really was anyway. She gave him the real one, but she could have given him any dumb seashell. He wouldn't have known. How would he know?
But also, like, let's back out of that and say, what did she think that was buying her? Like,
yeah, I think she was panicking that the plan was falling apart, and she maybe had, I don't know though, because like if she thought that there was, you know what? I think she must have been sure that she must have thought she was not on the chopping block, but that she needed numbers to make sure Ben got voted out.
He told her that not that she was on the chopping block, but that Ben was targeting her specifically because she had these advantages. So I don't understand why your response would be like, well, I'll just burn my advantages. So now I'm not a threat. Don't vote for me because I don't have these advantages.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what it comes down to, though, is that if the idea is target her because of the advantages, well, if she takes the advantages out of the picture, then maybe they don't target her, and that's maybe the logic there. But it also just sets her up for having what happened happen. And one of the times of the whole season that they don't split votes. I mean, not that they had the numbers to really do that too much anyway. But
when you're making the decision in tribal.
Yeah, definitely not then. But yeah, so in any event, he immediately says, as soon as she does that, he says to the camera before we even go to tribal council, she just made one of the stupidest moves in Survivor history. But do the Survivor gods make her pay for it or not? And he kind of just gets this look, and I'm just going like, so the question you're really asking is, are you going to make her pay for it or not? And the answer is definitely yes. I mean, that's like, that's the Google Translate of what he said there. So in any event, that gets us to tribal council. And my first note is, a discussion of trust degenerates rapidly. Ben is definitely on the defensive, but then he comes out hard against Lauren being a threat because of all these advantages. And this is where we get the second inexplicable decision from Lauren. Like, now, it's one thing if it was a lie. But at first she says she tore it up, and then she says it was back at camp. Like, I don't know, like, why? No, don't ever do that. Ever. Never. Why? Either that or maybe it's a lie, in which case, like, I don't care as much, but it's still not necessarily the approach I would have suggested.
I mean, I feel like it was a lie. I mean, I feel like she did have that, but she was, again, her strategy appeared to be, I have no advantages. Don't make me a target. When I really, my what my idea is that I will regain all of my advantages as soon as we're done here, and I've gotten rid of Ben, but because Ben said I have advantages, I no longer. To which Mike said, screw your advantage. I'm going to burn half of it.
I couldn't believe that. And I actually, my first thought after that happened was, what would the rules be about her trying to reach into the fire to grab it? I mean, you don't want to burn your hand, but it's also like, it's like for.
It was somewhat unprecedented. I mean,
yeah.
No one's ever burned their own. Well, I guess it has happened. Someone did do that once. I can't remember when.
Yeah, I don't remember either, but
You
definitely.
Someone got up and like made a show of that at one point.
I think you're right, but I don't recall the details either.
They just like chucked it in there because they didn't want it, for
whatever reason. But yeah, Mike just did that as a total like I'm on TV moment, which is pretty entertaining. I'll give him that.
It was amazing to watch it happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So in any event, we got all sorts of stuff going on. Lauren spills about Ben's fake idol, which he had apparently decided not to use because probably it got to the point where maybe when it was going to be time to implement, that's when he was already trying to work with Chrissy. And so Lauren spills that detail, and then Chrissy's just like, what? And
it also became less important once Lauren had already found the actual idol. If you believe his true motive, which was to dissuade them from looking for the idol, if the idol is gone and doesn't matter, it doesn't matter if they look for it. So what's the point?
Right. So now everybody's arguing about, who's really the most dangerous? Ryan whispering to Mike that they should vote for Lauren in order to try to keep her extra vote if she really left it at camp. I thought there was a great bit of Lauren kind of just going, we're all threats. Just kind of like, Lauren's a threat. It's like, well, yeah, we're all threats.
Yeah, we're down to like 7 people. Like we're literally all threats.
Yeah. And then Devin literally just stands up and walks over to the other side of the tribal council to try to pitch voting for Ben to Mike for calling everybody out is essentially the answer. And to some extent, there's that element of like, well, yeah, he's making it impossible to play Survivor in the traditional way, except that it's also not all on Ben for doing that. Mike probably played more of that role than anyone, of just telling everybody any secret that he ever finds out.
Yeah. Ben overheard his alliance targeting him, made a plan to flip on one of his alliance who had the most advantages in the game, use that as the reason why he was now wanting to work with the other side. Mike got scared and just told everything.
Yeah, just blew it up.
You're me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, from my end, it's never me that's frozen. So, I mean, but it's
always you. So.
Well, right, exactly. That's my point. But to some extent, because I am hosting the call, I think it would end up having my version, if you follow me. But you know what? I actually don't usually go back to double check that. But anyway, who cares, really?
Eventually to have to finish the sentences. Yeah.
Right. So in any event, it's very chaotic. It does still seem to be a choice between Ben and Lauren for everybody else. That still seems to be the decision being made from everybody's perspective. Ben announces his intention to vote for Lauren. And then after we vote, they held the suspense of whether Ben was going to play his idol or not for a long time, given that, to my mind, Ben would have been literally insane and stupid to not play it.
Yes.
And it's a good thing he did, but it was just one of those things. They held that suspense for a long time. But he does play it for himself. And then sure enough, 6 votes does not count. Does not count. Does not count. And then Lauren voted out from just Ben's vote.
Yep.
That's kind of crazy. And you can see on her face that just sort of look of like, I didn't want to get voted out, but that was crazy. And it's kind of exciting to have been involved in that, you know?
Yep.
Yep. So yeah, this is definitely exciting gameplay because I think no one left on the show is in a position of really just being dragged along. There's nobody left who's boring. So it's
Nope.
like, yeah. So it's kind of exciting at this point to have the decisions really coming down to gameplay, good or bad, and not just, personality types.
And we're out of idols, at least at this point,
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
There's still 2 times to play one, but no
Right.
one
Well,
has.
because there's a half of one. So does that other half get put back somewhere? I don't know how they would do that.
I mean, I guess they would just give another clue.
Yeah. But we'll see. So the scenes from next time, Ben is obviously a big target, but maybe Ashley? And I liked how pragmatic Lauren was in her final words, just basically saying, yep, I was cursed by giving half of my idol to Mike. And I like the way she's saying it there, where you can just tell she knew it was a dumb decision as soon as she did it, but then couldn't take it back.
Right. Yeah, and so she put this whole, like, the curse of giving away your idol. Yeah, the curse of giving away your idol it's dumb.
Yeah.
There's no magic like thing. It's a dumb
never
thing to do.
give it to someone else. If you decide in the last moment to play it for someone else, that's one thing.
Right. But to hand your idol to someone else is dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when it's to get them to trust you and not vote you off.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
Made their job easier.
Yeah, but in any event, that's what happened. So
right. Just back that up though and say, like, if you're in Lauren's position, like, let's go back to that conversation real quick with Mike. If he's saying people are targeting her because she has an idol and an extra vote, you don't give your idol to Mike. You say, yeah, and I'm damn sure going to use it if I feel targeted tonight. And Mike's going to go, oh my God, this can't work because, like, she's going to, and then she gets to keep her idol and not get voted off.
Yeah. Well, she did the opposite of what a lot of players do, which is it's possible to play so hard for as long as it's not me this time, but ending up with nothing at the end. But I think that she was thinking a little bit too far ahead, trying to plan out how she could still have her idol later. Like, I will give you this half as trust to prove that I'm with you, and then later I get it again. That sort of thing. I think that might have been what she was thinking, but just the idea of, I mean, it's a gamble, I suppose, but it seems like a losing gamble, and not just in retrospect. It's just this idea of, if you are wrong, you go home this time, as opposed to, if like the other bet is maybe later you go out because you didn't have your idol still, but at least you sure won't go home this time.
Right. And what she's forgetting is that having the idol, like, I know people make this whole, like, big thing about going home with the idol in your pocket. Like, I'm more okay with that than what she did.
Yeah.
When you have the idol, you have a credible threat to not have them not vote for you. She had no threat of them not to vote for her. Like, they could literally, had they all decided to vote for her, she had nothing to do about it. She could do nothing.
This is a terrible analogy, but what just popped into my head is the idea that, well, Sam, we want Gollum to trust us so that we can be sure he'll lead us where we want to go. So let's let him hold the ring for just a minute. It's like, fair. Yeah. It's like, well, okay, but yeah. So that was a terrible decision. I think she recognized it probably almost instantly, but then it was too late, and it blew up, and then she got voted out as a result. Voted out with a single vote because the other 6 were unanimous and didn't count. Like, if they hadn't been unanimous, it would have gone another way. Or no, I guess because the split would have been Ben or Lauren, right? So
yeah, it wasn't another target. Yeah.
Yeah. So but I guess it's still
idle. It would have put more concern. Like Ben might not have voted for her.
Mm-hmm.
He knew she still had her idol.
Yeah, like if she just hung on to it and said, "I'm going to play it tonight,"
then he would have thrown it at like Ashley or somebody.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ashley was immune from the challenge.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So, he could have picked whoever he wanted at that point then. Mm-hmm. But he might have been more cautious about saying Lauren if he knew that she had also had the potential. Right. And it would have changed a lot of the discussion. But the fact that she just like eliminated herself from having a credible threat, like,
yeah,
it's not a curse; it's a mistake. But,
yeah, it was a big one in the scheme of things. Yeah.
Yeah. And I liked her, but I can like people and they can make poor decisions. That's
sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that probably does it for this episode.
It does.
And I think we've got one more before the finale, as previously discussed. And so we'll be back next week to talk about episode 13.
Yes.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Night.